أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
واللعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. Any prophet or any person who claims to be a prophet or a messenger has to prove his claim, and that is done with a miracle, something supernatural, abnormal, that normal people can't do. And that is the way all the prophets have proven their claim. And it's the same case when it comes to the successors of the prophets. They also have to have miracles to prove that they are the successor of this prophet. They are the hujjah of Allah. Allah's representative on earth has to have some powers that other people don't. So the prophets each had a certain kind of miracle, or some were similar to each other. And the miracle we have today from our Prophet Muhammad is the Holy Quran, which is the only living miracle of all those miracles performed by the Prophet. Some have counted them up to 4,000 miracles performed by the Prophet of Islam. But the Quran itself is enough. But that's another discussion. It will need another time to discuss how is the Quran a miracle. It's a very important, especially when approaching and discussing with non-Muslims, that because we have to know how the Quran is miraculous. But the discussion today is about all the miracles that we read in books. Like one of the friends was mentioning that he was reading the history of the prophets in the past and how he came across weird stories, unbelievable things about the prophets mentioned, and he was asking, are they true or not? And I replied that we know for sure that some of them are fabricated or some of them are not authentic. Not everything should be mentioned. Even those narrations that are reliable and authentic, not everything should be said to anyone. You have to have the suitable audience when you're reciting a hadith. So you have to be cautious and careful what you say to whom you say it, right? So it's not to be mentioned everywhere and anytime in front of everyone. But some take this too far. They're uncomfortable when they hear some abnormal stories by the prophets or the imams. Their minds become so enlightened that they become so realistic that they can't accept most stories or most things that are narrated by imams. Especially, we have them, in the Shia community, the Muslim community, especially amongst those that are academics, and they rely very much on science and on facts, and they won't buy fairy tales and superstitions and those weird mumbo jumbo stories. They say we're in the 21st century and we are civilized people. We're not like people in the past that would believe these kinds of stories. Today, we only believe what we see. So they take this issue too far by denying such stories Or no, they don't deny it, but they don't feel comfortable with them. Or at the least is that they say, what's the benefit of discussing these issues? Let us discuss some things that are beneficial today in our lives, and we don't need these kinds of stories. But you see, the Quran keeps on bringing these kinds of issues. It mentions them all the time, constantly in different chapters of the Quran. And why is that? Why does it mention it? Because it was this wasn't new, denying such abnormal stories and acts performed by prophets or imams. It's not something new. In the past, they were people that they wouldn't believe such things, and they were denied. Many, like when you hear that Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam, when he lifts the gates of Khaybar, a gate that was pushed open and closed by, some say, 70 strong men, he lifts the gates all by his own and by one hand, and he throws that gate on the ditch so the soldiers and the army could pass. Well, this was seen by many, but although many have narrated, it's mutawatir, it's narrated a lot by those companions, but it is also denied by some Muslims that don't like the virtues of Ali ibn Abi Talib to be mentioned. And you have followers of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and they don't like these things to be mentioned. As I said, they're not comfortable with these kinds of abnormal stories. So it is true what the famous scholar Shafi'i said, Imam Shafi'i, the Imam of the Shafi'iyya. There's a sentence attributed to him where he says, what can I say about Ali ibn Abi Talib? They ask him, what do you think about Ali ibn Abi Talib? He says, what can I say? ماذا أقول في رجل أخفى أعداءه فضائله حسدا. A man who his enemies concealed his virtues because of their hatred and because of their jealousy, but أخفاها محبوه. But his lovers and followers, they also concealed his virtues. Why? خوفا, because they were afraid to mention his virtues. Maybe today some are afraid. As I said, we can't mention all of them to anyone, but it's those that are taking it too far that concerns me, because they become too realistic in that aspect and they won't accept normal things that are mentioned. We have to keep a balance between what is superstitious and what is a fairy tale and what is reality. So Shafi'i says that even his followers have concealed his virtues and his enemies have concealed his virtues, but still ظهر من بين ذين وذين ما ملأ الخافقين. You still, after both parties concealing the virtues and hiding them, all the skies and all the earth is full with the virtues of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Abu al-Qanduz al-Hanafi is a Sunni scholar. In his book, in Abi al-Mawadda, he says that Rasulullah said about Amir al-Mu'mineen that من استمع إلى فضيلة من فضائل علي, whoever listens to one of the virtues of Ali ibn Abi Talib, غفر الله له ذنوبه التي اكتسبها بالاستماع. Allah will forgive those sins that he has committed with his ears through hearing. And whoever reads one of the virtues of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Allah will forgive the sins he has committed with his eyes. This is a Sunni scholar, Qunduz al-Hanafi, narrates this. So, mentioning the fadal of Amir al-Mu'mineen, by mentioning them, Allah will forgive our sins. But we have to prove through the Quran that, can the Quran help us prove that Amir al-Mu'mineen had that capability and had that power? Was he given that knowledge to do what he did and what we claim he did, or not? So we don't want to discuss books that are not authentic and read stories. I mean, as some say, it's not that beneficial for us today. But the main thing is that we should know the balance. We should have the faith that some of these things do happen, have happened, and we should believe in them. And we have to prove that through the Quran, like Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam would do when they would deny a miracle by Amir al-Mu'mineen. The Imam would refer to the Quran and the story of Sulaiman. He would tell them, haven't you read the story of Sulaiman? He would refer to this story and to prove and bring the evidence and argue that why would you deny such miracles by Ali ibn Abi Talib when the Quran has mentioned similar to them. So tonight we will just read some of the verses of the Quran talking about Sulaiman. Allah intentionally discusses the story of Sulaiman and what he had given to him. So you won't be surprised if you hear that the Prophet or his successor had similar powers and had similar miracles. The Quran says about the Prophet Sulaiman that he asked Allah for a kingdom so powerful that no one after him could have such power. Why? Because he wanted a miracle. He wanted the kingdom to be his miracle. So people would know that this is not normal power. This is a abnormal power, a superpower given to him by a divine power. This is not normal. He says that قَالَ رَبِّ اغْفِرْ لِي وَهَبْ لِي مُلْكًا لَا يَنْبَغِي لِأَحَدٍ مِّن بَعْدِي. O Allah, forgive me and give me a kingdom that will be never given to anyone after me. So what did Allah give the Prophet Sulaiman? He gave him a few things mentioned in the Quran. I'll mention a few of them. فَسَخَّرْنَا لَهُ الرِّيحَ. The winds were under his control. تَجْرِي بِأَمْرِهِ. They would go whichever direction and how he wanted them to go. رَخَاءً حَيْثُ أَصَابَ. Of course, how did he use the wind? The traditions say that the Quran is referring to the magic carpet. It's not magic. Well, the cartoons had the magic carpet. It was something like a magic carpet. It was a carpet. And the wind, with his demand, would lift this carpet. And on the carpet, he and his servants and his soldiers, they would sit on the carpet and it would take them wherever they wanted. The Quran says, وَلِسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحُ غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ وَرَوَاحُهَا شَهْرٌ. The wind would take him from morning to noon, a distance that it would take you a month. And it would take him back the same distance from noon to sunset. It would take him a distance that it would take you a month to reach that destination. غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ وَرَوَاحُهَا شَهْرٌ. So he had the carpet and the winds, and he had control over the jinn and the shayateen. وَالشَّيَاطِينَ كُلَّ بَنَّاءٍ وَغَوَّاصٍ. We have shayateen and jinn that are builders. They build. He ordered them to build temples, buildings. And he had shayateen that would dive. They were divers. They would dive into the seas and bring him. They were, fairies of the seas, or I don't know, the mermaids are one of them, but but there are all sorts of jinn. We have fairies in the forests. They're actually jinn, I suppose. Or in the sea, or others, there are different kinds. وَآخَرِينَ مُقَرَّنِينَ فِي الْأَصْفَادِ. And the other shayateen, they were in shackles. They weren't free anymore. يَعْمَلُونَ لَهُ مَا يَشَاءُ. They would build him anything he wants. Years ago, you heard, they were talking about, how have the pyramids in Egypt been built by human beings with all these heavy stones and that weigh 2 tons, and there's no trees or jungles. I don't know about, they're just estimating. They say that maybe the UFOs, they made the pyramids. It was mentioned a long time ago. So we don't believe in UFOs. But we know there were jinn that helped Suleiman build some things that human beings couldn't build them. And the jinn, the Quran says, mentioning that they didn't have ilmul ghaib, although people thought that the jinn had ilmul ghaib. They knew the unseen. The Quran says, فَلَمَّا قَضَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتِ مَا دَلَّهُمْ عَلَى مَوْتِهِ إِلَّا دَابَّةُ الْأَرْضِ تَأْكُلُ مِنْ سَأَتَهُ. Suleiman, he passed away while he was holding his stick and his cane, and the jinn didn't know. He stood there on top of his palace, watching over his kingdom for, some narrations say, for 1 year, and he was dead. And they thought he was alive. They were looking at him and wondering, why is he standing there? And no one could check on him because he had ordered no one to interrupt him, and no one could have permission to come until he comes out of his room. So the Quran says, until Allah sent termites to eat the stick, and he fell. And then after 1 year, people found out that he was dead for 1 year. And how could it be? The jinn, shouldn't they know about this? Shouldn't they have found out? فَلَمَّا خَرَّ تَبَيَّنَتِ الْجِنِّ أَنْ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ الْغَيْبِ مَا لَبِثُوا فِي الْعَذَابِ الْمُهِينِ. So it showed that if the jinn really knew ilmul ghaib, they wouldn't be in that difficulty and working for him and in chains. They would be freed if they knew that Suleiman is dead, because he was the only one that controlled them. But they didn't know, and they were kept in that harsh situation that they were in by Suleiman. Then another thing given to Suleiman, a miracle, was that one day the Quran says, إِذْ عُرِضَ عَلَيْهِ بِالْعَشِيِّ الصَّافِنَاتُ الْجِيَادِ. They had a presentation. They were showing him the racing horses they had, and he was fascinated by these horses. فقال إني أحببت حب الخير عن ذكر ربي حتى توارت بالحجاب. I love these blessings of Allah, and I was so fascinated by these horses until tawarat بالحجاب. The sun set. It became sunset. The sun set, and he hadn't prayed the noon prayer yet. So the Quran says, Suleiman said, "Rudduha alayya." Bring it back to me. Some Mufassirin say he's referring to the sun. He says, "Rudduha alayya." Let the sun rise again so I could pray my noon prayer. And Alam al-Majlisi said this happened 2 times in Bani Israel. Once it happened for the wasi and the successor of Musa, Yusha ibn Nun. And the second time it happened for Suleiman alayhi salam. So this was another thing. He could return and bring back the sun. It would or the earth would rotate in diverse direction, and it would return back to normal. Then another thing was that قال أيها الناس يا أيها الناس علمنا منطق الطير. Allah has taught me the language of birds. He talked to birds. So he would ask them to go on missions, like the hudhud, where it says وتفقد الطير فقال ما لي لا أرى الهدهد أم كان من الغائبين. He was looking for the hudhud, and he said, where is he? I can't see him. He should be here right now. فمكث غير بعيد. He waited not long, and the hudhud came with the news. جئتك من سبأ بنبأ يقين. I have come to you from Yemen with certain news. إني وجدت امرأة تملكهم. I saw a woman. She was a queen. She ruled over them. And what was interesting for the hudhud was that أوتيت من كل شيء ولها عرش عظيم. She had everything she wanted, and she had this very big throne, this very big arsh. It was so great and big, it catched my eye. وجدتها وقومها يسجدون للشمس من دون الله. Until he reached this part that, they're not worshiping God, they're worshiping the sun. And Sulaiman didn't like that. So the Quran says that, well, take a letter to them. اذهب بكتابي هذا فألقيه إليهم ثم تول عنهم فانظر. Take this letter to them, throw it in front of them, and go back in a corner and watch what their reaction will be. So what happened was that they saw the letter, they asked the queen, who's the letter from? قال يا أيها الملأ. The letter, she said the letter, إنه من سليمان وإنه بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألا تعلوا علي وأتوني مسلمين. Sulaiman wrote to the queen of Saba that you have to come in submission. You have to come to me in submission and submit to me. So they came, and they were on their way from Yemen to Sham. Sulaiman, he was in Sham in Palestine. So when they're on their way, Sulaiman wants a miracle to show them, show them his powers, right? This was the miracle that God had given to Sulaiman. He wanted to show her that he has powers given to him by God. So he asked his advisors and everyone in his court, قال يا أيها الملأ أيكم يأتيني بعرشها قبل أن يأتوني مسلمين. Which one of you could bring me her throne, that great throne, before they reach this place, surrendering and submitting to me? So one of the jinn, Afritun min al-jinn. Afrit means a kind of jinn that is powerful. قال عفريت من الجن أنا آتيك به قبل أن تقوم من مقامك وإني عليه لقوي أمين. I will bring you the throne of Bilqis from Yemen to Sham before this meeting finishes. He was sitting like maybe from morning to noon, and the meeting would finish maybe at noon. He said before the meeting finishes, like let's say 1 or 2 hours, I could bring you her throne. And I'm very strong. And you could rely on me. But Sulaiman said, no, that's too late. I want it sooner. I want it now. Who could bring it to me right now? فَقَالَ الَّذِي عِنْدَهُ عِلْمٌ مِنَ الْكِتَابِ. One of people sitting in that majlis, that meeting, who had some knowledge of the book. He said, أَنَا آتِيكَ بِهِ قَبْلَ أَنْ يَرْتَدَّ إِلَيْكَ طَرْفُكَ. I will bring you the throne of Sheba before you could blink. Then in less than a second, I will bring you the throne of Sheba. So he brought it to Suleiman. He brought the throne just like that. He said he wanted it to be, and it was. The throne was there in front of Suleiman. And well, the story goes on, and well, Sheba comes, and Suleiman tells her, "Is this هَكَذَا عَرْشُكِ? هَكَذَا عَرْشُكِ? Is this your throne?" And she's surprised that what is it doing here? So the point is, brothers and sisters, that they asked Imam Alhadi alayhi salam, that didn't Suleiman have the power to do that? Wasn't he a prophet? Was he in need of that person whose name was Asif ibn Barkhia? He was the vizier of Suleiman, his wasi, his successor. He said, did he need the powers of Asif ibn Barkhia? Couldn't he do it himself? Imam Hadi alayhi salam, he said, no. Suleiman could have done it himself. In fact, he was the one who taught Asif ibn Barkhia how to do that. But his intention was this, to introduce his successor, his wasi, to the people, and to show them that this is my successor. He's going to lead you after me, and he has this power given to him. This is a sign that he has the ability to rule. He will be the representative of God on earth after me. The Imam says it was only to demonstrate who Asif ibn Barkhia is, so they would know him, to show his virtues. That was the only purpose Suleiman had. He was the one who taught Asif ibn Barkhia ilmun min al-kitab, some knowledge from the book. He was taught by Suleiman himself. What is the book and what is some knowledge from the book? Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that the book is 72 names, 73 names. Allah has asma, 73 names, and Asif ibn Barkhia knew one of those names, one of those asma. He had learned it from Suleiman. It was given to him, and we Ahlul Bayt know 72 of them. So Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam says that when they come to me and deny that Ali ibn Abi Talib was in Kufa and he threw off Muawiyah from his throne in Sham by just moving his leg, when he said, if I want, I will throw Muawiyah off his throne onto the ground if I desire, and he moved his leg, and he suddenly in Sham, Muawiyah was thrown off his throne on the ground with no reason. Imam al-Sadiq says, they come to me and they deny such a thing. How could this happen? Is this a fairy tale or is it a lie? He says, when they don't deny that Asif ibn Barkhia could bring the throne of Bilqis from Yemen to Sham, why is it different? Then the Imam says, wasn't the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, wasn't our Prophet greater than that Prophet Suleiman? Won't his wasi and successor be greater than the wasi of Suleiman? If he could do that, why can't Ali ibn Abi Talib do such a thing? Why can't Ali ibn Abi Talib be مظهر العجائب and do the weirdest and surprising of things? How could they deny this? So, you see, brothers and sisters, the point is, we want to show that the Quran itself proves that such things are possible. And the successor of a prophet has such powers, and he should have them, because it's the proof he has that he is the representative of Allah. He has to be given such a power to show it to people. So he does. The Prophet, as Sulaiman wanted to introduce Asif by this miracle, our Prophet, not only he introduced, he appointed Amir al-Mu'mineen as his successor on many occasions, including Ghadir, but he also proved to them through miracles that this is my successor and he is given powers that you don't have. This hadith is mentioned by Anas bin Malik. He was in the city of Kufa, Basra, and he was narrating a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So Anas bin Malik had some kind of disease, a skin infection, that he would cover his face and his forehead, something like the blotch, and he would cover his face, but it was obvious. So when he was narrating and reading the hadith of the Prophet in Basra, someone stood up and said, "O companion of Rasulullah, I heard from my father that a mu'min will never have and experience the disease you have. How is it that you came to this point? Why did this happen to you?" Anas ibn Malik, he lowered his head and started to cry, and he said, "This is the da'wah and the dua and the wish of Ali ibn Abi Talib. He did this to me." He said, "How?" He said, "Well, the story begins like this. We were in the time of the Prophet I was in the presence of the Prophet, and he told me, 'Anas, go call these people.' He gave me names. 'Bring me Abu Bakr and Umar and Uthman, and bring me Talha and Zubayr and Abdul Rahman ibn Auf and Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas.' You know, the names are familiar. The Shura, the Saqifa. Said, 'Bring them to me.' So I went and I brought every one of them to the Prophet, and he said to them, 'Today you will be going with Ali ibn Abi Talib somewhere.' So suddenly we saw that the Prophet said, 'I want you to sit on this carpet.' So we sat on the carpet, and the Prophet said, 'You will be taken somewhere with Ali ibn Abi Talib.' So with the dua of the Prophet, we saw that the wind blowed and the carpet was lifted to the skies, just like Sulaiman, where the Quran says he had the Sulaiman al-Rih, وَلِنَبِي مُحَمَّدٍ الرِّيحِ also. And he is trying to show them who my successor is. So he says to them, 'Go with the wind,' and the wind takes them. With Amir al-Mu'mineen amongst them and Anas ibn Malik, it takes them where? To a cave. Imam Ali tells them to step down, come down. They say, 'Where have you taken us? Where have you brought us?' He says, 'This is the cave of Ashabul Kahfi wal Raqim. I want you to say salam to them, and they should reply to whomever is the wasi of the Prophet, his true wasi, and successor. So every one of them, they say, Assalamu alaikum, ya ashab al-kahf. But there's no reply. All of them, they say salam, but Amir al-Mu'mineen, when he says, Assalamu alaikum ya ashab al-kahf wal-raqim alladhina kanu min ayatina ajaba. They reply, wa alayka as-salam ya Amir al-Mu'mineen ya wasiyya Rasulillah. Then the Imam tells them, have you heard them? Did you hear what they said? He said, yes. Did you hear them reply to me and how they replied me, addressing me as the successor of the Prophet? They said, yes. So he took them back with the carpet, back to the Rasulullah, and the Prophet said to Anas ibn Malik, "Oh Anas, did you see what happened?" He said, "Yes, Ya Rasulullah." He said, "I want you to witness this incident after my death, when Ali wants you to come and witness." So the dame came after Saqifa, and Amir al-Mu'mineen called upon me, said, "Anas, come witness. Tell them what happened on that day on the carpet." He said, "Ya Ali, I forgot. What incident are you talking about? I can't remember. I have a shallow memory, forgive me." So Amir al-Mu'mineen said, "If that is true, that is a lie, then may Allah curse you." And he cursed me. And this is what happened to me. This is what he da'a and cursed. So the Prophet is trying to tell them and show them who the successor is and what abilities he has. And if Sulaiman alayhi salam could bring the sun back, so did Amir al-Mu'mineen alayhi salam. Ibn Abbas says that the sun came back for three people: Yusha ibn Nun and Sulaiman and Ali ibn Abi Talib. And it happened twice for Amir al-Mu'mineen. Once in the time of the Prophet, where Amir al-Mu'mineen came after the Dhuhr and Asr prayer. After he was sent on a mission, he came to Rasulullah, and the Prophet said, "Ya Ali, sit down. I want to lay my head in your lap and rest." So he took a nap until the sun set, and the Prophet woke up. He said, "Ya Ali, you haven't prayed yet." He said, "No, Ya Rasulullah, I couldn't. You were on my lap." So the Prophet said, "Oh Allah, Ali hasn't prayed yet. And he didn't pray because he was obeying your command and my command. So, oh Allah, I ask you to bring the sun back for him in order for him to pray." So the sun comes back and rises in the sky, and the Imam prays, and it sets again where it should have been. And the mosque was built in that place in honor of Amir al-Mu'mineen in Medina, or outside Medina, called Masjid al-Fadih, or something like that. Right? Fadih? Fadih. Masjid Fadih.
Existing maybe before 20 years, but then they demolished it.
And another masjid is in Iraq, in Hilla, called Masjid al-Shams. After the Prophet, he passed away, Amir al-Mu'mineen was going after the battle of Nahrawan. He was returning back to Kufa, and he was passing through a ground and a land, and it was the time for the Asr prayer. But Imam said, "This land is a doomed land, and I, as no wasi, no prophet, and wasi has the right to pray and worship God on this earth, on this land, this particular place. So I have to go by, and whoever wants to stay and pray, but I can't. I'll go forward." So some stayed and some went with the Imam until the sun was setting, and the companions were in doubt. What is happening? We're not praying. We haven't prayed yet. is what we couldn't believe it. Is the Imam truly missing his prayer? He's an infallible ma'soom. Is he going to miss his prayer? Then the Imam said, return back to them. Are you worried? Are you doubting me? Then he started to speak words we couldn't understand. We saw the sun that had set, it suddenly came back into the sky. And we prayed and it returned back to its place once again. And the last thing I want to mention is that Sulaiman was given power over the jinn. And we hear stories about Amir al-Mu'mineen fighting the jinn, and some books I've seen have denied such stories. If you look and search the internet, you could see that they ask questions and they say, no, these are abatil, superstitions, it's not true. What's the weirdness about it? If Allah wants to give him power over the jinn, couldn't he do that? Well, he can't fight a jinn with a normal sword. I mean, that can happen because they're not like us, materialistic. They're from another dimension. But if God wants to give you power over them, like he did to Sulaiman, that's something possible that Amir Mu'mineen could have done, and he is greater than Sulaiman. Like in the incident in Bi'r Dhatul Alam, the Prophet and his companions, they were returning from a war, and they crossed a desert. In that desert, they ran out of water. They came to a well. And around the well, they saw bones of human beings and skeletons. And they asked, what is this well? Why is it so haunted? They said, this is a well of the most vicious jinn and shayateen and demons. And no one can fetch water from that well. So Rasulullah, he sends Abu al-As, his brother of Rida', who is Akhul Rida'i, and he sent him to fetch water and see if he could get some water. Suddenly they see a demon, Ifritun min al-jinn, one of the powerful kind of jinn. He comes out, and I mean the narration is it describes it in details, and you think that what is it a story of? I mean, these stories we hear, is it like the Lord of the Rings, or I mean reading, what is this story? But I mean, it's mentioned in a few books like Al-Anwar al-Alawiyya, Kanz al-Wa'idhin, and other books, that it's narrated by Hudayfah ibn al-Yaman and Sa'id al-Khidri. They say that the Prophet, when they wanted to fetch water, the demon comes out and he burns Abu al-As. He burns him with flames and he becomes in ashes, and the others run away. So the Prophet says they come to the Prophet and crying and afraid and telling him what happened to his brother Abu al-As, and the Prophet says, fetch Ali ibn Abi Talib, tell him to come. So Amir al-Mu'mineen comes, and the story is very long. The Imam enters, goes to the well, and the demon comes, and as you know, he has the Dhul Fiqar, and no one could confront him with the Dhul Fiqar. So he kills the demon, and he enters the well, and the narration says the Imam takes a long time in that well, until when he comes out, the Prophet tells him, Ya Ali, do you want me to tell you what you've done, or you're going to tell us the story? He says, I'll like you tell us, Ya Rasulullah. And the Prophet says that you went in the well, in their kingdom. They were jinn that said that we rebelled against Sulaiman. We were the jinn that Sulaiman didn't control us. We were the rebellions. He ran away from his kingdom and rule, and the Imam fought him and he killed, as it says, hundreds and thousands of them. How? Well, that's not, with a normal sword can't have happened. It's a power that only Allah could give someone. And the Prophet wants to show the Muslimin, how this successor of his wasi is special in that way. He's the only one who could kill the jinn in that way. So he says, you killed thousands of them and the rest surrendered to you. And they converted to Islam. They became Muslims. And you appointed a king for them, a leader. Is that right? He said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. They became Muslims and I appointed a king for them afterwards. And they were there for many years. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. They were there in that well until the day of Ashura comes, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he sees some dust in the air, a tornado, a small tornado, and suddenly a figure appears, not like a human being. The Imam says to it, who are you? What are you? He says, I am Za'far al-Zahid, the leader of the jinn of the well that your father fought us. And he appointed my father as the king. And I am the king after my father passed away. I am from the same well, Bi'r Dhatul Alam, that your father has fought and appointed us. And I have heard your call, Ya Aba Abdullah, when you said, Hal min nasirin yansuruni? Is there anyone to help me? And I have come to help you and aid you, Ya Hussein. This is my army in this desert, ready for you to fight alongside you. The Imam said, but you can't be seen by them. They can't see you, the enemy. That's not a fair fight. You could see them, but they can't. I can't accept and let you fight for me. So the Imam says, Jazakumullah khaira. I thank you, but go away from this battle and don't interfere in it. So they were prevented. The Imam didn't give them permission to fight. Then another party come that were also asking for permission from the Imam, and the Imam would not allow them. Who were they? They were the angels. The narration says 4,000 angels descended on the day of Ashura, and they said, Ya Aba Abdullah, we are the ones that helped your grandfather in Badr and the battle of Badr, and we have come to help you on this day. Will you give us permission to aid you and help you? But the Imam does not give them permission to help him. Then a third person comes and asks for permission for Abi Abdullah and says, I want to help. But the Imam won't let him. He says no. Why? Because he's his 12-year-old nephew, Qasim ibn al-Hasan. He begs the Imam, oh uncle, let me be sacrificed in your way. Let me help you. He says, no, my nephew, I cannot let you. He says, oh go uncle, but how can I hear and bear you call? Hal min nasirin yansurani? Is there anyone to help me? The Imam said, oh Qasim, you remind me of my brother, Imam Hassan. I cannot let you go and be killed. You're only a young boy. How can you fight? So Qasim, he remembers that his father, Imam Hassan, has given him a letter, a well, and he shows it to Abi Abdullah. He says, oh uncle, this letter is from my father. Before he passed away, he gave this to me when I was 2 and 3 years old. So Imam Hussein reads the letter by Imam Hassan. He says, he addresses his son Qasim. He says, oh Qasim, there will be a day that will come on the day of Ashura in the land of Karbala. You will hear your uncle calling for help, and there you will call for someone to aid him. Oh Qasim, you will have to be there and defend your uncle on my behalf. So when Imam Hussein read this letter, اعتنق القاسم, اعتنقه, he held him in his arms and he hugged him. وجعلا يبكيان حتى غشيا عليهما. Abi Abdullah and Qasim, they both cried so much. The narration says they fainted on the ground. They fainted as much, they cried so much they fainted. When they gained consciousness, Imam Hussein said to Qasim, "Oh Qasim, I will give you permission, but I have no armor that could fit you. I have no helmet that could fit you. How will you go to fight? He has no armor on his sides, no helmet." So he brought the turban of his brother Hassan, and he put the turban on his head instead of a helmet. And instead of an armor, he wore him a kafan, only some garment around him. And he gave him the sword of his father, Imam Hassan. And Qasim rode towards the enemy saying, "In tunkiruni fa'ana najlul Hassan, sibt al-nabiy al-mujtaba والمؤتمن. هذا حسين كالأسير المرتهن بين أناس لا سقوا صوب المزن." He said, "If you don't recognize me, I am Qasim, the son of Imam Hassan. I am the grandson of the Prophet. And this man you are fighting is Imam Hussein, and you have held him as captive in the land of Karbala." So he fought bravely. The enemy underestimated Qasim. They didn't expect a 12-year-old boy to kill so many of them. They underestimated him until one of the enemy, he got angry. He said that I will kill this boy and I will let his mother weep over him. Hamid ibn Muslim said to him, "How can you kill a boy so young and so beautiful and so handsome? If he attacks me, wallah, I will not attack him back. How can you kill him?" So the man said, "No, I will kill him for sure." So he came from the back of Qasim and he struck Qasim on the head. And Qasim called, "Adrikni ya Amma, oh Uncle Hussein, come and help me." So Abi Abdullah came to help Qasim, but he saw the La'in holding his sword on the throat of his nephew. So Imam threw his sword at that man and he cut his hand, and the man called help from his family members. He said, "Come and save me." So Imam Hussein was coming toward Qasim. Suddenly the army, they approached by the call of that man. Their horses, the horsemen, they started riding towards Qasim. And Imam Hussein, and a battle and a clash happened between Imam Hussein and the enemy. Imam Hussein was fighting them, but suddenly he hears Qasim from beneath the hooves of the horses, crying, "Ya Amma, I am being crushed by the horses. Stop fighting and then get me out." So Imam Hussein, he tries his best, and he finally reaches Qasim, but it's too late. إِذَا بِالْغُلَامِ يَفْحَصُ بِيَدَيْهِ وَرِجْلَيْهِ. He sees Qasim moving his feet and taking his last moments, and then he says to him, "Azza wallah ala ammika an tad'uhu fala yujibuk." "Oh Qasim, it is difficult for your uncle to call him and he cannot answer you. Oh yujibuka fala yu'inuk. Oh, he but he cannot help you. أو يعينك فلا يغني عنك. Oh, even if he does answer you, he will not be no new use to you. So Qasim is dead in front of Abi Abdullah. وَرِجْلَاهُ تَخُطَّانِ الْأَرْضِ. The narration says that Imam Hussein, he takes Qasim, he hugs him, he puts him to his chest, and he lifts Qasim to take him to the tents. But he sees that his legs are dragging on the earth, on the ground. He's dragging his legs. How could Qasim with that height? Why are his legs dragged on the ground? Why? Because Qasim, his bones were crushed beneath the hooves of the horses. His body was crushed, and his body has become longer than it was before. جابه ومدد ما بين خوته. جابه ومدد ما بين خوته. بتشاعدهم يا ويلي هموته. بتشاعدهم يا ويلي هم موته. بس ما سمع عن النسوان صوته. اجت رملة تصيح الله أكبر. بجرم قفتنا أهلا من الأسى القاسم. شبیه موم اصل خانه کردن. چقدر فاصله در بندت افتاده که با عمویت شانه به شانه‌ات کردند. الا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم اقضي حوائج المحتاجين واقض بين المديونين. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج واجعلنا من أنصاره وعوانه والممتثلين لأوامره. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات. الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآله